Earnestly podcast coming to you May 5th, 2022. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. Guys, it's been a little bit since I've done a little bit of layout with Solar Pod in about a week or so. So this is gonna be kind of like a clearing the palate episode, if you will. I'm actually doing this on the phone, obviously, out of the studio. Right now, everybody's sleeping. Well, I'm doing this at 8:30 in the morning. And I just want to clear the palate because there's a lot of things that have been going on this week I wanted to get to, but I've had a rough week. I've been under the weather a little bit the last couple of days. I'm still a little bit under the weather, but I'm trying to get through it. But there's so much stuff going on right now that I just can't let it go and let it slide. There's so much things I want to touch on. I can't let it slide. You had the NBA playoffs in full swing, second round in full swing. It's been a very interesting first couple of days of the second round of the playoffs. A couple of NFL things to touch on and a couple of things in pop culture want to get to. But first things first, I just turned 42 this past Sunday. And this is when my issue started. I had a major allergy attack that morning, and and it's been pretty much in the same old throughout the last 4 or 5 days now. Got a little better today. Feel a little better today than I did the last couple of days. Left work early a couple times this week as well. Had to cancel all the podcasts I scheduled. I had also to appear on a podcast this week. I also had 2 shows I had planned on doing. Had to cancel that. It's been one of those things where I had to take a break, step away a little bit, but it is what it is. But I feel a little better today. We'll see how it goes. But birthday was good. Thanks to all the everybody who wished me a birthday on social media and text and stuff. I really appreciate it. You guys are fantastic. I would like to do something a little bigger, but I've noticed I really come to the point now in my life where once you're in your 40s too, especially when you have kids, like the birthday thing isn't as big a deal as it used to be. It is what it is. Like, you acknowledge it, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, you're 42 and cool. But I put more energy and time into my kids and their birthdays because, of course, they're kids, and they definitely love just the acknowledgement of that. And especially when you have 2 kids that are literally separated by 4 days, birthdays. Now, granted, again, different ages, but one's April 4th, one's April 8th. So you have a lot of energy there, and by the time you get to the end of that week, you're like, okay, we're good for the year. So again, thanks to all people that's wishing birthday. I really appreciate it. Like I said, it is what it is. But like I said, lots of going on in the NBA this week. I want to touch on that. This is the thing. This is something I've been touching on too, especially. I've started considering in recent days whether or not we should take this podcast to a more daily format, because a lot of issues, a lot of things that come up on a daily basis throughout the news. And like I said, we don't just do sports in this podcast. This is definitely a sports foundational podcast, and we agree with that. But obviously, we touch on a lot of things outside of sports. We touch on politics here. We touch on pop culture. We touch on, music, whatever it may be. We want to talk about. And it's open. It's a safe space. It's open forum of discussion. And if I want to talk something, I'm going to talk about it. That's the way I feel. But of course, I've said in the past, I have done this in the past too, where we have had done daily podcasts, and I think we had a whole 2 years at one point of doing daily podcasts. Remember the old Unfiltered podcast where I would do shows on the road, and and what I would do is I would do those shows on the road because those shows are mostly smaller, bite-sized episodes, between 15-20 minutes an episode. And I would do those shows sometimes like leaving work late at night, so I had that window. And then as you get older, and obviously time is of the essence, and things change, and priorities change, and I had a second kid, and then obviously the work schedule changed eventually too, and and at that point it's like, okay, well, I'm not sure if I want to keep doing this daily, But I'll be honest, I do miss it though, because sometimes you have that avenue to do so, and I still have the avenue to do it if need be. It's a matter of putting energy, because as I said in the past too, a lot of the work that goes into the show really is mostly in preparing the show. Like, sit here talking about stuff is nothing to me. I can sit here and just babble about any topic, and I can fill time. That's not a problem, but having to find topics, fine-tune topics, find the things that are factual, and then present my opinion on it based on what the facts are or what information is. And, and again, I don't want to half-ass it either. I want to be able to do this in a way where it's authentic. I'm not telling everybody to think like me. I am in the opinion business. I'm not so much in the, this is not journalism. This is opinion business, and that's a big difference. I'm not here getting stories. I'm here seeing stories, taking stories, and it's forming my opinion based on the stories I see and things that are interesting. So we'll see in the days, weeks, and months that come up, because, the biggest change going to happen with me, is here at home. It's going to be that my youngest son will start kindergarten, in August. So we got to figure out schedules and all that. And obviously he'll start getting homework and stuff. And so my attention is going to be definitely even more so at home. So will there be space for me to, dedicate more time on a daily basis to this podcast? Obviously as you know how we do this with the show now, we have not just what I do with the solo stuff here I'm doing now, for example. I like to bring guests on at times too as well, and we have conversations there, but I also have my own other concepts I do also too. And, football is awesome when it comes back to a weekly format in September. You're going to have that. You're going to have, obviously, as I was saying, In the Paint, which I do, weekly now, especially throughout the playoffs, but that's going to, I missed this week because I was sick, but excuse me. Other than that, that's going to sound bad actually on the recording, but I'm not going to edit it out because it's again, authentic. But it's going to be challenging to see where it's at. So I don't want to just dedicate myself to just doing something like that just yet until I'm really clear on my vision for this podcast and this in general. There's a lot of things I want to do also too. I'm kind of getting itch to write again. That's another thing, but again, that takes time, and writing even more so takes more time than doing this medium, because you got to find time to sit and relax and actually just get in your head. Writing is much more therapeutic in a lot of ways, but it's also the most time consuming. This is why I haven't been writing much in the last couple of years. Even though do I want to write? Yeah, of course I want to write, but the question is, do I have the time to write? That's the question. So we'll see how in the days and weeks and months, years, or whatever, how long it takes to make a decision on that. But, yeah, we'll see what happens there. Man, so pretty much the star of the second round in the playoffs is John Morant. John Morant's been balling. Memphis Grizzlies are now tied at 1 apiece as opposed to State Warriors. You could argue we're a John Morant way from being 2-0 Grizzlies in the second round of the playoffs. I think John Morant is going to be. He's potentially could be the face of the sport. He could potentially be the face of the NBA. I do have concerns, of course, too, and it's not so much that I'm trying to be negative here, but like I said, I'm someone. I'm not a contrarian, but I do like to have a thoughtful discussion about John Morant's future and about his playing style. I remember saying when he came in the league that his prototype was Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, for all the things people say about him now today, and his disaster in LA this year, he was a fantastic player at the peak of his powers. He was one of the, dare say, top 10 player at one point. And I thought his prototype was Russell Westbrook. But the thing I've always said, I said even back when Westbrook came in the league was, could Westbrook evolve? Because his playing style, while it was great in his early 20s and mid-late 20s, could he evolve to be a better basketball player and find ways to extend himself as he gets older? And that's the concern I have with John Morant, because part of the things about, his playing styles, it reminds me a lot of Russell Westbrook, reminds me a lot of Derrick Rose. And one of the themes there is that now Westbrook has this issue really in the same way, but Derrick Rose, for example, in the injuries he dealt with, because of the playing style. Could John Morant be the one that eventually changes that discussion, changes that dynamic? I will say this much though, he's not. I wouldn't consider a great or even say good 3-point shooter, but he takes a shot now. He's not relying on going to the basket, which is good. And I think if he hits that 3-point shot, if he start hitting that 3-point shot with a more consistent manner, he's going to be unstoppable. Because right now, his game right now, third year in the league, he is virtually unstoppable now. Like, Golden State has no answer for him right now. And my hope is that Ja continues to evolve. Like, you want to be great, and I know he wants to be great, and he is great, but you want him to evolve. Like, he's very definitely climbing that top 10 conversation now. Like, we had this conversation on the In the Paint podcast last week about, Jason Tatum being a top 10 player, and we all said yes, and, we went through a list of players that right now are in that mix, and Ja's in that mix. I wouldn't put him there just yet, but, by the time these playoffs are over, we might be having a different conversation about that. So let's hope John Morant continues to get better. Let's hope John Morant continues to evolve his game. And let's hope he continues to be that guy. Because I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing here from this guy. This guy is really doing a fantastic job, and he's fun. He's box office. He's absolutely box office. So, a guy that's not box office anymore, who was for a while, but now he's falling off, is James Harden. Obviously the Sixers down 0-2 this year against the Heat. I mean, that's not a surprise. No Joel Embiid, but you figure James Harden would show up. I mean, he had a decent first half yesterday in game 2, but the overall perspective, he hasn't really been that good in Philly. Like, he had a couple of games out the shoot when he got traded, but, he hasn't really been the same guy. Now, I'm trying to, not be too over the top here, because on one hand, he's now the second guy in the pecking order behind Joel Embiid. So you have to look at it from a different perspective and lens, in the sense that, when he was in Houston, Harden was everything to the Rockets. Everything. Everything ran through him. And then he goes to Brooklyn. The Brooklyn years are almost forgotten in a sense, because he didn't play that long in Brooklyn. He played, half a year, and then another half a year, and that was it. I can't remember exactly how long it was, because the COVID years have been the COVID season has been so weird. But, it's like the Brooklyn era is almost forgotten. And last year too in Brooklyn, he was hurt down the stretch, playing second fiddle to Kevin Durant. But he's clear second fiddle to Joel Embiid. But you think that, okay, with Embiid being out with his injury, that Harden could finally step up, and he hasn't. Like, even the numbers he had in the first half yesterday, like, it felt empty. Like, it feels like, okay, well, he can still put up 16, 20, 23 points a game, but it doesn't have the same impact it did in the past. And if you watch him play too, especially, he's not getting the calls anymore. Obviously, you've seen in the last year or two, the officials now calling the game a little differently, whereas James Harden used to benefit from going to the free throw line all the time. That's not the case anymore. So again, I think these contract negotiations we're going to see in the coming months, once we get to the offseason. The offseason, rather, is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Daryl Morey and the Sixers, front office approach this, because again, I don't think the production matches what he wants, and it's not going in the same direction, or even, it's not. I just don't think he's a max player anymore. He certainly deserves a lot of money, but he's going to find a way to change his game or something. But I don't see him as a max player anymore. So let's see how that runs. Let's see how that goes. Let's see how that situation plays out, because I think it's going to be something that is probably the biggest story. One of the biggest stories of the offseason is the James Harden and what he does. By the way, I think LeBron James is done winning titles. I think LeBron James now, look at look at these playoffs. I think it kind of reminds you that we're in a different place now, where, when you look at the Lakers and what their situation is, and how where they're at and how things are right now, and it's a mess right now in LA. You got to get off Russell Westbrook's contract. AD can be healthy. It's can stay healthy. This is who he is. LeBron's getting older. And you look at just the Western Conference alone. Obviously you got Phoenix is great. Golden State's great. Memphis is here. Dallas is really good. The Clippers are going to be back this year. They're going to be back next year when Kawhi and Paul George come back healthy. You got Minnesota's coming. Denver will be back next year. And there's teams in the bottom. New Orleans is if Zion comes back and they can figure things out, they're going to be a problem. All those teams are in better spots right now, just in that conference alone, than the Lakers. So therefore, I'm convinced now more than ever, unless LeBron James gets traded to another team, he's done winning titles. He's done it. I mean, like I said, I was watching first take yesterday, and Stephen Smith was suggesting that he gets traded. And I'll tell you what, that's not a bad take, and I'll tell you why. Because right now on that roster, he's the guy with the most value. He's the most valuable asset, because Anthony Davis right now, at this point, as good as he is at 29 years old, he cannot stay healthy. So if you're a team out there that wants Anthony Davis on your team, just know that the max you're going to get most likely every year of his availability is 6 games a year, because that's been the case for his entire career. He's been playing an average of 56 games a year. So you're not getting max value of Anthony Davis. At least with LeBron at 37 years old, granted he's getting up there in age, but he's still a top 10 player in the league. But as we know, with LeBron comes a lot of baggage. Not bad baggage, but there's a lot to deal with that. And LeBron at 25 years old and health at 30 years old, I even say 35 to an extent, was worth the baggage. Now, I don't think so. If I'm Miami, I'm not trading for LeBron. Unless I'm able to keep all the core pieces and then some, there's no point. So I'm convinced that LeBron is done winning titles. And that's how I feel about that. Ben Simmons is going to have back surgery. The word is that he'll be back, expected at training camp in 4 to 5 months. I've said recently that I've come back on. I'm still harsh on Simmons to some degree, but I do think maybe I was a little bit harsh on Simmons after the whole thing with Game 4 and him not playing Game 4. But my criticism with LeBron Simmons is more so the optics. It was the optics. Why was there even a leak about him playing Game 4, 2 games before that, and then when they lose Game 3 against Boston in the first round, then he decides not to play? To me, it was handled poorly. Now, are we all a little bit heavy-handed on Ben Simmons to some degree? Maybe a little bit, but I still think the criticism holds true. He needs to be accountable. He needs to speak up. The same thing I say about Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick was blackballed in the NFL, and I agree with that. He has a right to freedom of speech. I agree with that too. But my issue with Colin Kaepernick for years has been speaking up. Sometimes people speak for you. Speak up. So Ben Simmons had back surgery. We'll see how that goes. Because right now, who's winning that Simmons Harden trade? I don't know yet. We were saying Harden initially, and we'll see how the rest of the playoffs go. But Harden's also falling off too. So we'll see. We'll have more in the months to come on that one. Let's see that real quick. Ryan Tannehill, obviously Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill, was asked about whether or not he should be mentoring Malik Willis. Malik Willis also is obviously the 3rd round pick for the Titans, the quarterback from Liberty, and he said basically saying he's not his job not to mentor him. So my opinion on that is Tannehill does have a point there. His job is not to mentor him. However, it's a bad look, because now what it makes you do, it makes you look soft and weak and insecure. Added to the fact that you already said, publicly recently that, after that 3-game interception game against the Bengals in the 2nd round of the playoffs, that you went to a dark place and you were to the point where you need therapy. So you add that, compound that with these comments now, you don't feel secure about your situation. Okay, are you in the job of mentoring Malik Willis? No, I agree with that. But at the same time, even if you don't want to mentor him, it should have been a situation where you should have said, definitely help him out. You should definitely said something to that effect. It makes you look bad. It makes you look weak, and now it makes you feel that you're literally one bad game away from losing your job. That's what I'm gonna say about that. It looks very weak, petty, and honestly, it's a bad look for you. But whatever. Dave Chappelle attacked on stage on Tuesday during his performance at the Hollywood Bowl. Now, he was attacked on stage, but the attacker got his ass whooped, obviously, and deservedly so. The attacker allegedly came on stage with a fake gun with a knife inside of it. Luckily, security got there on time, got a hold of the guy, and beat the living shit out of him. And if you see the pictures of the guy that got the attacker, for example, you know that his arms and his hands are all flipped around. They really beat the shit out of him. And again, people want to stop saying this is compared to the Will Smith situation, and who knows? I'm not going to sit there and just compare it and just say that it is so. But Comedians on the fly. It's going to be a situation now where, you have Chappelle, who's arguably the biggest comedian on the planet today. And he's getting attacked on stage now. I'm in the camp of protecting free speech. And personally, if your ass is on stage, doing this crap, you deserve what you get. Very bad luck, obviously. And I do expect, these comedians, especially the ones that are controversial, like a Chappelle, for example, who's been under fire for the last couple of years about things he said about the trans community. I expect even more security now to be beefed up now in these shows. He just announced yesterday he's doing a tour with Busta Rhymes, so I expect that to be a tightened security now moving forward. Crazy times living, right? Roe v. Wade, big political news. Roe v. Wade supposedly is about to be overturned according to a draft that was leaked out on Tuesday. One of the justices, Alisi, who was a 2003 selection by George W. Bush, has said that in the draft that was leaked that Roe v. Wade will likely be struck down. Obviously, lots of opinions on that. A lot of people on the left are very pissed about that. People on the right obviously love it. And everybody knows my position on the whole thing with abortion. I am not pro-abortion. I am pro-choice, though. It is a position in recent years have changed. I come from a very conservative background, so a lot of my beliefs early on in my life was based on the church. As I've gotten older, I've been able to think about things with my own set of eyes and ears and just see the world for myself. Again, I am not pro-choice. I'm not pro-life, but I'm pro-choice, but I'm not pro-abortion. But at the same time, again, and I tell folks this all the time, this situation when it comes to abortion, this conversation, I've said for years, that there's much more nuance that people get credit for. And unfortunately, people are so locked into their political corners right now that no one wants to have the conversation. Now we can have a conversation about late-term abortion and stuff, obviously, which I'm against. Obviously, the argument of viability is a whole different argument. But, a woman's right to choose, should still be a standard. And that's just my opinion. That's what it should be. I also think there is a political thing to this too, as well, especially because, my position on this was that up until this past week, I was convinced the Democrats were going to get slaughtered in the midterm elections in November. Now, I'm not so sure about that now. I think this is an issue that can galvanize Democrats and people on the left to vote Democrat. Not saying it's going to be enough to change the conversation because there's still inflation. There's still a lot of things going on under the Joe Biden administration that people are pissed about, and I get that. And I've said also, too, an example of that, Democrats don't typically do well in midterms anyway. They need something to trigger them to go get off their seats to go vote in the first place. The reason why Democrats did well in 2018 was because they were facing Donald Trump and Donald Trump's policies and Donald Trump's agenda. And that was enough to get people off their asses to vote against anything red. This could be this thing that gets them off their butts. Because Democrats don't typically do well in midterm elections. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, we still have till June to find out if this actually still is the thing. Because like I said, this leak, and which by the way, I'm surprised there's not enough. There isn't more speculation and curiousness about how it leaks, because there really hasn't been any precedence to this, having something like this, a draft like this, get leaked out over a month before they rule on a decision. So it's definitely something to think about. Let's see what else on the docket here. Oh, Saved by the Bell remake canceled by Peacock. They did 2 seasons, of course. I watched the first couple episodes of season 1. I thought the show was terrible. It was terrible. I tried to like it, but it's terrible. It doesn't have the same, doesn't have the same vibe, to the old one. I'm not saying it had to be exactly like the old one, but it's just, I wasn't feeling it. My wife and I watched the first couple episodes, and it's like, yeah, this is not, we're not doing this. This is not, something I want to watch. So, Saved by the Bell canceled by Peacock. After 2 seasons, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised the last 2 seasons, to be honest with you, but, it is what it is. Speaking of 2 seasons, Ryan Jones' Game Theory on HBO picked up for season 2, thank God, which is good. I'm a big Ryan Jones fan. I've been obviously giving a lot of shit to, if you see me on social media, to the Outkick.com crew, Clay Travis, and especially that clown Bobby Burak at Outkick, who was obsessed with Ronnie Jones, claiming that, oh, he has this down because of privilege now, and it's not white privilege. Like, stop. Just shut up. Like, you sound like a clown. Okay, just stop. Like, you literally sound like a moron. In fact, you probably are a moron. So, please stop. So, anyway, that'll do it for this podcast. Of course, dated May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 2022. Again, I'm on Twitter at EJChristian7. This is not a video version of this, obviously. We'll see when we get back to that. But until then, we'll talk to you guys soon. God bless y'all. Stay up. Stay positive. Make sure you just smile. Make sure you be kind to each other. Be good to each other. Just treat people the way you want to be treated. Always. Okay? Talk to you guys later. Love you guys. Take care. See ya.